I welcome you all to this meeting today of the West England Combined Authority Committee, including those who are watching online, of course. I'm Dan Norris, the Metro for the West of England Combined Authority, and just to quickly introduce my colleagues. Just have a little look. Over there we have Councillor Toby Savage. Welcome, Toby. We have Councillor Kevin. I was going to say Paul May, I meant Kevin Guy. Sorry, Kevin. And we have Councillor Craig Cheney. Welcome to as well, Craig. And then on my left we have Catherine. Welcome, Catherine, who is the Vice Chair of the Local Enterprise Partnership and a non-voting member today. And also can I welcome, I keep seeing Winston a lot lately, so I'm very long duration yesterday. Winston Duguid, who's Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and he's present to report on his committee's comments later on. Some members of the public, as we can all see, are also here with us, and they'll be joining the meeting, some of them to present their statements. And just a note, please, that all the statements received have been circulated and read by committee members present today and are also available to view on the West of England Combined Authority website. So if people want to follow that up, they're very welcome to do so. Before we move on to the main items, I would like to say that this is the first full meeting of the West of England Committee since the death of Her Majesty the Queen. Over the last fortnight, I've been struck by just how many people I've spoken to from right across our region who have so many memories, fond memories, of meeting the Queen. And I think that speaks very much to a life of unparalleled service and of promoting our fantastic part of the world and our great country. Okay, so the next item is item 2, apologies for absence. And those have been received from Mayor Marvin Rees, and Craig Cheney, as we've just seen, is very welcome today and is attending as his substitute, and also from Richard Bonner, the Chair of the Local Enterprise Partnership Board, and as I just mentioned, Catherine is very kindly stepping in as Vice Chair to attend as his substitute. Okay, and the next item is item 3. Are there any declarations of interest that anybody wishes to make? Now is the time, please. No, okay, none recorded there, please. Okay, item 4, the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of July 2022 and the 29th of July 2022. Is the committee happy that I sign these minutes as a correct record of those meetings, please? Yeah, okay, fine. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, the next item is Chair's announcement. We also meet today on the day of the mini-budget. That's what I'm calling it. I think the government call it something else. Where earlier today there was an announcement on investment zones for the West of England, and we await the details. And in fact, it just happens that the Secretary of State has asked to meet with me while I'm chairing this meeting, so my very able Chief Executive is going to deputise for me in that meeting, and she's going to come back and brief me. So I may have a short adjournment just so I can catch up with whatever has been said, because at the moment the details are not clear, the general direction is. I'm a natural believer in deregulation, particularly when it means, as some have suggested, reducing environmental safeguards, or not when it means reducing environmental safeguards. So I'm not, let me start again, can't read my own writing. I am not a natural believer in deregulation, let's get that right. I can tell I'm having a good day, particularly where it means, where some have suggested, removing environmental safeguards. So let's be clear, not for that at all. Okay, right, let's carry on in a better way. But if it means keeping money locally, and this is important, removing unnecessary bureaucracy and giving combined authorities new levers on powers, then we should go full steam ahead. We should take every advantage of every opportunity we possibly can to better our region. But we must be careful of any pitfalls. So we will look at the details with great interest. And I've also heard mention in today's announcement of the A4 corridor between Bristol and Bath, or Bath and Bristol, depending which end you live, and the M32 in what the government calls projects for acceleration, another catchy term that you'll all immediately remember, which I definitely back. I mean, I think the thrust of getting on with things is certainly something I'm keen on, and as I said, I await further details with interest. Okay, the next item is item 6, items from the public, and this is for up to 30 minutes. Now, to start off with, I think 5 questions from 3 individuals have been submitted for this meeting, and details of those have been circulated. Written answers will be sent to the questioners as soon as possible, so thank you for your patience with that. And these will be published on the West of England Combined Authority website alongside with the agenda papers. And we also have, I think, received 8 statements. I don't know if we've got any petitions. Can I just check with any officers we're aware we've got any petitions?
We have no petitions.
We have no petitions. Okay, right. So we have, I think, 8 statements. And as previously mentioned, we've made arrangements for some members of the public here today to join this meeting to present their statements where they've requested to do this. And up to 3 minutes per statement is normally allowed. And I'd be grateful if the individuals concerned could please summarise their points. Passionate as I know you feel about them, it's better when it's concise. We have read all these statements, which will be published on the West of England Combined Authority website too, for those who are interested. Okay, so if I can start off and check. Now, I know Dave Redgewell has put a statement in. He is not well. David, if you're watching online, I hope you're feeling better very soon. And the next person who I hope is here is Damien Valentine. Have I got that right? Damien, thank you very much. So you've got 3 minutes. Someone will shout. Don't be put off by that. That's just to help you know when the time's come, because I know you'll be really into it.
So we're here today to ask a decision about the one. Has been described as a partial replacement for the 178 service, but for many of the 178 routes, that description is wholly inaccurate. The 379 service will not travel through the villages of Hyndleton, Timsbury, Marksbury, Farnborough, Stanton Prior and Burnett, leaving these villages with virtually no public transport options, and many of the members of the community will be isolated as a result. The 379 service will also not travel through Keynsham or Brislington, and many of the current users of the 178 use this route to travel to Wellsway and St Brendan's schools. The proposed route would force these school children to travel into Bristol or Bath before catching a different service back to these schools, significantly increasing their journey time. In addition to the issues with the proposed service, we question the necessity of the 379. The route will provide additional transport options to the villages of Temple Cloud, Clutton and Pensford, villages which are fortunate enough to have a half-hourly bus service into Bristol already, at the expense of any meaningful service to our villages. The cancellation of the 178 service will have devastating impacts to our communities. A petition has been created to save the 178 and has been signed by over 1,000 people. Many have cited the loss of independence for the elderly and people with disabilities as their reason for signing, and many others have called out the use of the service to travel to school and to work. One particularly sad story is that of a local resident who uses this service daily to visit her husband, who is spending his final days in a care home. Another lady who has special needs has been asked by her employer to hand in her notice after 30 years of loyal service, and she will be left with no means of travel to her workplace. Amongst these extremely sad stories are many more people who are no longer able to visit shops, attend doctor appointments and meet friends from nearby villages. There are also people who are left with no viable method of transport to their workplace during a cost of living crisis where losing jobs is going to ruin lives. The 178 might not be the most profitable route in the area, but for these communities along its route, it is absolutely vital service and it must continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Damien. Well put. Thank you. Okay, is Brendan here? I think I've seen Brendan. There he is. Hello, Brendan. Welcome. It's your turn to speak. Have you got the microphone and everything?
No, I haven't.
Right. We'll see if we can give you the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I'm here today to talk about 3 vital bus routes that need saving and that need to be saved. First of all, the 126 between Weston-super-Mare, Tenner Gorge and Wells bus station is getting cut with no replacement that has been imposed, which means residents are going to be stranded. Tenner Gorge, which is a vital tourist attraction, but it's also home to many elderly residents who go shopping to either Wells or Weston, will no longer have no bus service whatsoever in that area. Also, to follow up from this, with the Y4 being cut, which means Fenton will only have one bus a day to Bristol, which is the 626 Monday to Friday, run by Euro coaches from Wootton-under-Edge. This is really appalling, as it cuts off residents to be able to attend doctor's appointments or to even go for the basic necessities such as shopping. I propose to you that we need to save bus services such as the 126, the Y4 and the 178. As Damien said, these bus services might not be the most profitable, but they are the most vital to our communities and they need saving. I also put forward to you, you say we cannot run these bus services because they are not profitable, and you say we are short of bus drivers, but if we are short of bus drivers, why are we running the 17 from Southmead Hospital to Bristol bus station just so drivers don't have to change over at Kingswood? We are we are wasting 20 drivers by running the 17 and Y6 to Bristol when those resources could be used elsewhere, aka to save the Y4, the 178 and the 126. So I put forward to you, this needs to be looked at now, and it needs to be looked at ASAP before the changes take place on the 9th of October. I also put forward to you, work on the Bristol to Humby line cannot be abandoned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brendan. Appreciate that. Now, is Jordan Curran here? Jordan. Now, are you speaking on behalf of yourself or David Redgewell or both?
Both, I think.
Okay, so
Yeah,
which one are you, can you make clear which one you're doing first? So
can I do mine first, if that's right?
Okay, that's
Brilliant.
fine, and then
Thank
we'll
you
come
so
to David's afterwards. Okay, so you've got 6 minutes.
Oh, brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you. So basically, pre-COVID, the Frome to Bath bus corridor had at least four buses an hour on it during the daytime. Since then, the bus service frequency has been reduced severely now to just one bus an hour during the daytime. From October the 9th, obviously, First Bus are proposing many changes and cuts across the West of England region. For the First Bus D2, this means the loss of the evening weekday bus service and the Sunday service, reducing to 2 hourly, and loss of day services in the day as well. Frome is the fourth largest town in the county, in the Somerset County Council area, with a population of about 30,000. With recent developments in the town, Frome and surrounding villages see Bath as their go-to place for work, shops, leisure, employment, hospitals and education. For many of the... I absolutely cannot stress enough the negative effect the loss of the weekday evening D2 service could have on this Frome to Bath bus corridor. I've used the D2 bus services for many years. I've got to know a lot of the people who use the bus. I know many people who are facing prospects of losing their jobs, as their jobs are reliant on hospitality industries, leisure industries, shift work and irregular hospital shift work. These people work in RUH, St Martin's, Theatre Royal, Roman Baths, Bath University, retail, hospitality and for other companies. These people aren't able to drive and reliant on the bus to get to work, and these people are more likely to be on lower incomes or potentially the minimum wage. This will have an overall effect on Frome's employment status, hindering growth and limiting existing opportunities, plus have a detrimental effect on Bath and North East Somerset Council's economy, as people will have to give up their jobs as no longer able to work. Frome has a young population, which is ultimately more reliant on buses compared to the national average, as stated in the Frome Town Profile 2016. I know many of the users of the evening bus service. Many live in the villages between Frome and Bath, such as Beckington and North St Philip and Hinton's Charles and Midford. These villages have absolutely no alternative as a result of these cuts. Many of the D2 evening users use the D2 as a safe option to get home, many of them being young or vulnerable individuals, or some with additional needs that might not be able to be catered by the train. I myself, due to a medical condition, will never be able to drive, and the D2 is the only way I can hold down my job in Shepton Mallet. I work nights, so I'm completely ultimately dependent on the D2, and I must stress I am not alone. Many people's livelihoods are ultimately in stake with their employment. Some of these people have mouths to feed and must provide, and Frome has faced a difficult job market in recent years. with many people looking to Bath for employment. The social need of this service is massively important, connecting friends, families and communities. I don't know how much you're going to see my friend from now on because he lives in Brislington and I'm going to have no way to get there. Some have promoted the train as a reasonable alternative for the D2, but that is not an alternative. The train is not a replacement for the D2 service at all. Frome Station is an awkward location at the eastern edge of town with a lack of infrastructure to connect it to even the eastern developments of town, with some facing walks up to 2 miles from a dark, unlit station along dark, unlit paths such as Willow Vale. There have also been several attacks at night over the Frome area, and I'll tell you this now, Frome is generally not a safe place these days. There is no bus from the train station, and in Frome, a lot of the taxi companies have gone out of business post-COVID, and the ones remain don't operate late this evening. Frome Station has stagnated growth in services, and the evening trains are also facing threat, as I know local people that work in the industry. Fares are high on the trains, and obviously the train is just not an alternative for the D2 evening. I kind of have...
That's great, Jordan. Okay, that's brilliant. Can I just ask you about your friend? Is that a romantic thing? Because I'm guessing it's not a romantic friend, is it?
No, it isn't.
Because you'd crawl across broken glass if it was a romantic friend.
Oh,
yes,
you won't
of
walk
course.
to Frome without a doubt, of
Station
course.
on the edge of this town. All right, okay. Right, thank you very much. That's very interesting. Obviously, Frome isn't in my patch directly, but we're all interconnected, so it's important to know these things. And thank you very much for reading that so well. I do. No, you did a grand job. Thank you for that. I wish I'd done as good a job at the beginning as you have, so keep going. So you're now going to do something for David Redgewell, is that right?
Yes. Yes, I'm going
and
to...
you know what you're saying and you're ready to go?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, let's do it then.
Let's
Great.
give it a go. I'm just going to get that up quickly.
When you're ready, you go.
Yeah, thank you so much. We welcome the investment in light rail mass transit system for Greater Bristol and the Bath City region. We welcome the investment in Metro West Bristol, all the stations in the Bristol area. But the most important issue is the cutting of bus services across the city region, with areas of the city region being left without public bus services. The West of England Mayoral Combined Transport Authority does not appear to arrange any replacement bus services in this area, except the 47 Bristol via East Bristol from Yate. Sorry, I think. Other community cuts off are Midsummer Norton, Poulton, Keynsham, Brislington and Bristol Temple Mead Station on the 178, which needs a replacement service. The X2 Yatton to Bristol. We do have train services, but these aren't always appropriate as replacement services. And the 126 Wells to Weston-super-Mare with services withdrawn. We're concerned to see a shortage of drivers. We appear to have the following routes in operation with West of England services: 17, Y6, 349, A4. We are pleased that Mayor Dan Norris saved the 96 St Anne's, Brislington Knoll, 51152. We welcome discussion with the Big Lemon Bus Company in saving services 516, 515, 505 and 506. We need to bring in more small local bus operators. We want to see marketing and reductions in bus fares on all bus and coach services operated by the West of England Mayoral Combined Transport Authority and North Somerset Council with the Avon Rider and other associated rider tickets in the area. We need to promote integrated transport services and mobility as a service to all passengers, including disabled passengers. In junction, we welcome the work by the Metro Mayor Dan Norris and North Somerset Councillor Steve Bridger on a mass transit system, but top priority for passenger is a bus, rail, coach and ferry network. I think there we go.
Okay, Jordan, that's great. So you finished that for David?
Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Well, look, thank you very much for both the statements, because it's brave to do one. 2 is amazing, so well done. You've done a good job. Thank you very much. Okay, is Councillor Denise Dennis here, please? Denise? Sorry, no? You're going to read in her stead, are you? Okay, so would you be Rosa? I am. Hello, Rosa. Thank you very much indeed.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to read a statement on behalf of the Wells Bus Users Group. We collected at least 900 signatures on paper petitions to save the 126. 850 of those were so important that they sent them a recorded delivery to be signed for posting. Therefore, they were making sure it was going there. Many went to Dag Clearing Board on the 16th of August, and a further over 200 went to Micah Rigby at Somerset Councils on the 12th of September. We need the future of the route to be assured by the Council and wish to inform the West of England Combined Authority of the group of people who use the service and need it as a priority. Our concerns are that for many people who use the 126 for getting to work from villages to Wells, for students who live in those villages attend the Blue School, Strode College and Western College, and for at least one group of 12 women with learning disability who commute almost daily from Directorate to Wells for work experience at Good Earth, a local restaurant, and for the elderly and disabled who have to attend hospital appointments. This does not include, of course, the non-car users who will be isolated for shopping, social contact, and other people and other organisations. Our plea is that there can be a joint thinking between North Somerset, Somerset Council, Somerset Bus Partnership, First Buses, and please, sir, put your influence on them, knock a few heads together. Here are just some of the emails. First one is 13 women aged from 32 to 55 live at Bradbury House in Draycott. These women have disabilities and support staff who do their best to empower the residents to be independent and as far as possible. Some work in Wells, others travel to and from their place of work by bus. Others catch the 126 to meet their families for weekends. Regrettably, we already have a no evening or Sunday service, but this 126 is essential for the rest of the week. It's there and we need it. If staff were to provide this transport for these ladies, this would both reduce their independence and also raise the questions of whether we in Somerset as a community are being responsible with the resources that we know is necessary. And we need to, of course, limit the use of fuel of authority vehicles. Oh, can I carry on a bit more? As a teacher, it was heartwarming to see pupils of Wells Blue School and King of Wessex of the meeting to listen to the articulate explanation of how important the 126 service is to them. Some live with responsible adults who don't drive, other parents are carers whose partners provide transport, but they work, and therefore they cannot get their children to school. The 126 made it. It's a service that enables these young people to access social life facilities in Wells, without which they would be isolated in the village, for example, Rudney Stoke, Draycott, and the many other villages along that route. There are also many students who travel to Wells to then catch on buses to Bristol and Bath University. Therefore, that route is important. We in Somerset, in Wells, urge you to please support this route. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Rosie. You did a grand job for Councillor Dennis there. I appreciate that. Okay, the next person is Amelia Melville. Is Amelia Melville here? Amelia, welcome.
Hi, so I'm here speaking for West Act, which is West of England Shared Transport and Active Travel. Very much support all of the statements that have been made so far about cuts to bus routes and the need to maintain bus routes. People will be changing their lives to not depend on the buses, and that will cause further reductions in passenger numbers as hopefully bus routes get reinstated. Our statement is that to achieve net zero by 2030, we need a rapid modal shift away from cars. And in fact, regional assessments indicate a 40% reduction in cars to 1990 levels. This requires an integrated, cheap, reliable public transport system. People need to be able to rely on public transport to be on time and not be cancelled. Buses or other mass transit need to connect with active travel modes and with each other and get people to where they work, shop, go out for leisure and education. This means integrated ticketing across all modes of transport, trains, bus operators, all of the operators, trams, e-scooters and e-bikes, capped daily fares across all of those different modes of transport, public transport being cheaper than car parking, as well as aligned timetables or pulse-based timetabling so that interconnections are well-timed and smooth, transitioning from local feeder routes to fast routes. Information needs to be clearly accessible for all users on smartphones and for those who are not digitally connected. Real-time updates should follow state-of-the-art information as exists in Dublin and Edinburgh. This needs to be coordinated by our local authorities and operated as a public service to serve communities and not just profitable routes. It's essential to make these changes and investment in the next 5 years, alongside changes that discourage car use if we are to achieve net zero. As a green region, we should be leading the way and not trailing behind other cities, with our retrograde ailing public transport holding back jobs and education. As the regional governance body, leadership for this visionary change needs to come from the West of England Combined Authority. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amelia. Appreciate that very much. Is Councillor Marley Bennett here? Marley. Let's get the microphone across to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. You'll be aware, having written to you about this previously, the issues facing Stapleton with the withdrawal of their services. And I am really grateful to the responses that you've had so far. But my concern is that the current proposals by First to withdraw both the number 5 and the Y4 services will leave Stapleton from October the 9th without a single bus service. We've already heard today, how important bus services are to people's lives. A few points I'd like to add specifically to the area of Stapleton. It's an area not far from the city centre where there's a number of buses running nearby that could be quite easily redirected to service Stapleton. I did ask first if the new 47 service that they're bringing in could, instead of running up Fishponds Road, could go up Park Road and through Blackberry Hill. This is something that should be possible with a bit of thinking. We hosted a really well-attended public meeting yesterday, which had about 80 people there, but there's been previous community meetings on this. And a petition that's been set up to save the number 5 has been signed by over 1,500 people. That's rising rapidly. Specifically in Stapleton, it's got quite a high proportion of people who are elderly, and I've spoken to a number of people who are disabled and don't own a car and face not having any means to transport to leave their home once these bus services go. Obviously, the collapse of Bristol Community Transport has sort of compounded this further. It's also got is host to Brandon Trust's Elm Tree Farm, which is a brilliant facility where people with learning disabilities are able to come and visit. And I've spoken to some of the clients who catch the number 5 to get there, who face the prospect of not being able to get to Elm Tree Farm any longer to access these services. It's a good summary. There's also Colston School as well in Stapleton. There's a lot of school children travel and use the service. A final point I'd make is my understanding is this isn't a loss-making service. This, is a well-used service, especially at peak times. So, it's not one that's always needs subsidised. It's just it needs the drivers to operate the services. So what we're asking, what residents have asked me as the councillor, is for services to be saved in some capacity if it's not possible to operate on the current frequency, a service once, every 40 minutes, once an hour, just as much as possible. This seems like something we should be able to do with the number of services we run up Fishponds Road, asking for one of them to be redirected to go through Stapleton. Shouldn't add much time to the total of the journey, considering the congestion on Fishponds Road. So I think this is something we should be able to do. So I'd be really grateful if you can personally look into this and speak to Doug Clarenbold on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marley. I will do that, and I'll make some comments at the end when other people have finished as well. Okay, Robbie Bentley.
Yes, hi.
Hi, Robbie again.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for your time, everybody. What Marley just said isn't just affecting his ward, it's also affecting my ward. As many of you will be aware, I live in St Paul's. I stood in the local council elections last year for the Ashley ward, which is adjacent to yours, Marley, and it's also going to affect us. As you will be very well aware, last year the Transport Secretary Baroness de Vere cut COVID relief grant funding for the number 5 and many other routes, including the 17 in the Greater Bristol area, and this decision was thankfully actually reversed by the Transport Commissioner on an emergency basis using the old system, which is now in the local hands. We really need to get a handle on this because the number 5 should be a highly profitable route which serves not just school students, but mature students, adults. We also have educational institutions across both inside and on the periphery of Ashley Ward, which this could easily make the service a profit-making route, independent of the need for public recourse or funding of any kind, and people should really be making use of this service in an area where we're about to have the impact of peak car with respect to the clean air zone, which I do support and does need to happen, but this needs to happen as part of an integrated package where we are asking people to be moved across from private car ownership, because we have no more capacity for that in St Paul's or St Werburgh's, and on to buses such as the number 5 or other routes that could also be diverted into the area to provide services. There are people in the public domain who have been campaigning on these matters for many, many years, and all that has happened is more and more services have been chipped away. This is not the way we are going to address the climate emergency, and it is not the way we are going to serve these very important inner city communities which provide lifeblood resources and services for people right across this region. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you very much, Robbie. Appreciate that. Rosemary Nash. Rosemary.
Good afternoon. I'm not going to tell you how important bus services are in the rural areas, because a lot of people, especially on the 178 route, have already told you that. In any case, you already know. I know that the Mayor is trying to find alternatives for routes where existing bus companies have pulled out, and that's very laudable. I hope that an existing company, local company, can be found, and there are several who already have the right licences, knowledge of the area, the vehicles, the depots to store and service the bus and coaches, and most importantly, the staff. But unless they are offered contracts of at least a year, it won't be viable for most of them to take the routes on. If the contracts end up being offered to out-of-area companies who don't have the necessary infrastructure, all that will happen is that they will poach the staff from the existing companies. If that's the case, our local bus and coach companies may well end up going out of business, with the result that we'll end up in the same fine mess that we're in now. So please make it possible for reliable, long-term replacement providers to be found, and maybe we can have a virtuous circle where the public trust the services and use them, rather than the existing vicious circle where we don't trust the services and use our cars instead. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Rosemary. Very clearly put. Thank you. Okay, well look, before we move on, I'll just quickly comment, because clearly there's a lot of feeling. I completely understand that feeling. I think it's totally justified. It's a difficult and unprecedented time in relation to buses. We do need to kind of think of new ways of doing things if we possibly can, because if we carry on, as Rosemary mentioned, in the same old way, we'll get the same old outcomes. But let me just go through a little bit of where we're at, and this is a snapshot as of today, because the cuts don't happen until next month, and things are still happening day by day. Negotiations go on, discussions go on. Basically, we have had 27 cuts approximately proposed, of which 13 have been saved. I say saved in quotation marks because licenses need to be obtained to make sure that actually happens, and we can't assume that necessarily will be so. We have to think it will, but we don't know for certain. But that still leaves a significant number of buses that still haven't been identified for help. And that work goes on, and my staff have been told to throw the kitchen sink at it to try and deal with it. Your point about, Rosemary, about the length of contracts is a good one, and I have told my officers to do what they can, but there are limits to that, I'm afraid. But what's more challenging with that particular bus that you mentioned, the 178, is that because it's a commercial route, it is very difficult for us to provide an alternative because we're not allowed to under the law. We cannot do that. So there are kind of restraints that stop us being able to do the things that we'd like to do sometimes. But we keep thinking, keep working to try and work out what we can do. And obviously, because buses were privatised some decades ago by the Conservative government, I can't compel the commercial services to do anything. They are independent. They're allowed to do what they wish in terms of providing services where they think they can make money. But while I can't do that, the real problem at the moment actually is the lack of bus drivers. We have between 100 and 150 shortage of bus drivers at the moment. That's going to get particularly acute with the return of students to our area. So that will be even harder. The rising costs in the bus industry are part of the reason why they're making the decisions that they're making, unfortunately, because the inflation rate for the bus industry, we're struggling with 9.9%. And like to go up higher. At the moment, it's already in the 40% for the bus companies because they have fuel, obviously, servicing, all those kind of things, and they've rightly paid their drivers more to try and attract more people in. Now, what I'm doing is what I can, and it's not as much power as I'd like to have. So in terms of the bus driver shortage, we are trying to identify, recruit and train bus drivers. And we've been doing that for some months because I could see where we were headed. So we've already got underway with that. And we'll be working harder month by month to try and sort that because that is really, really important. That would make a big difference in the shorter term. What we also have done, as you may have known, is announced a series of changes to the fares, basically a reduction pretty much across the board. To try and get people on buses. But I completely appreciate if you haven't got a bus, it doesn't matter how much it costs, completely get that, but we are where we are. And obviously it's very important if we're going to meet our net 2030 environmental CO2 target, we need to get people out of cars and into public transport, and buses are an important part of that too. So I'm acutely aware that not having this situation any longer is helpful towards getting our environmental aims done too. What I hope I can offer to people, because I can't tell you anything other than the unvarnished truth, I'm afraid, which is it is very tough times. There are communities, as we've heard today, in places like Stapleton or Timsbury or Puckerchurch and a number of others, where there is a real risk of no bus services at all, and that is devastating. And it is a big blow if you are the community or an individual in those situations concerned. But I cannot do what I haven't got powers to change, and I have to be honest about that. I'm very happy to talk to Doug Clarenbold again. I talk to him fairly frequently. He's just got married, so I haven't spoken to him in the last week. But I will speak to him as soon as he's back and ask again, because you never know. There's time yet to possibly make a change, so we will leave no stone unturned, I promise that. And what I hope is that the money that we've been able to secure in the West of England Combined Authority of about two-thirds of £1 billion, which will start coming in a sort of significant way from next April. I hope we can use that in the way that the government are intending, and in new and innovative ways to try and deal with some of the challenges that you described. But it doesn't help us get from today to next April. That is my problem. So I'm doing all that I can, and my staff are working unbelievable hours trying to work out how they can sort this out, talking to people, trying to look at things. The suggestions that have come from the public, yourselves, people like David Redgewell and others, suggesting companies that might be available or possible that can run services. We're happy to look at any possibility. We're not going to ignore any bit of information. We're going to desperately try and get what we can. And as I said, we have been able to get so far 48% of the total number of cuts sorted, at least temporarily. And we've also introduced 2 new routes that try to make it easier, where we don't get any competition law rules in the way, to try and make it easier. But it's not perfect. This is not a good news story, and I'm not pretending it is. What it is a slightly less bad news story. But it's serious, and if you're directly affected, it is a big deal, and I get that. So it is the one thing that really keeps me up at night, thinking about what we can do. Is there something we've missed? Have we forgotten something? Is there some experience somewhere else in the country that they found a solution? We must know about it, because our communities matter. Okay, thank you ever so much, everybody who's contributed. It's a brave thing to get up and speak in public, so thank you for doing that. Really appreciate that. Okay, right, let's move now to item 7. Actually, before I just say that, your comments have been noted, just so that people don't think that you speak into thin air and it goes nowhere. It's been noted by me, but it's actually formally noted too. Okay, item 7 is comments from me comments from the chair of the Local Enterprise Partnership Board. So I'm going to ask Catherine Finn. Thank you again, Catherine, for being here today as Vice Chair, substituting for Richard Bonner, the Chair. So over to you, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everybody. Yes, so I think I'd like just to begin by, you made reference to sort of change in administration and government, and we'd like to emphasise the board's commitment to working with a new administration and government, and really to make sure that we continue to build our relationship with the government and with the local MPs, and we'll be as interested as you will be to hear more about the investment zone and exactly how that is anticipated to operate and the opportunities for our region. Clearly, and I know others will talk about it, but the region, is continuing to have significant impact from both COVID and now the overriding impact of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and we remain in the state of uncertainty with residents and businesses and public services, as we've just heard, being affected by the rising cost of living, and obviously something that all of our sort of businesses are very concerned about. With regards maybe to some of the specific things that are then going to be discussed today, just starting with the investment fund, I note the inflationary impact on the investment fund, following on from what we've just said about the various factors that are having a significant impact across many aspects of life. So we welcome the recommendations to try to minimise the impact and to enable the funding of ambitious activities and try to ensure that key outputs remain delivered on time. Particularly pleased to see the investment in the infrastructure to enable the delivery of the Hengrove Park development, which we believe will significantly transform that part of South Bristol and provide some much needed homes. And I think just in general, it's important to ensure that we continue to have the active pipeline of projects so that we can take advantage of funding opportunities as they arise. And to make sure that we're well placed to bid into the national programmes as well as utilising our own funding, and particularly with the expectation, I think, that national programmes might change in the near term. With regards to the investment fund delivery assurance, again, welcome the measures being put in place to improve on project delivery and help to ensure that we avoid delay and that we can get the benefits of those projects as soon as possible. Specifically, I think the LEP welcomes the review of the Quantum Technologies Innovation Centre project, which is set to form the heart of the new Temple Quarter Enterprise Campus. We believe this has the potential to be a nationally and internationally recognised asset for the region, and that it will cement our reputation as the home for innovation. I'm particularly pleased to see the emphasis on the development of a skills strategy, which will mean that people from across the whole of the West of England region can access the pathways into the high quality jobs that we anticipate being created by the QTIC. We believe that the new measures recommended by the review will help to get the project firmly back on track and ensure that its potential can be fully unlocked. With regards then to the Infrastructure Directorate Transport update, the business community fully supports the scale and ambition that's shown through the City Regional Sustainable Transport Settlement and the Transforming Cities Fund, and continuously reviewing the key activities and work programmes to reflect those changing priorities and cost increases. We believe that the schemes will help growth and productivity and connect our residents to employment and training opportunities in an efficient and affordable way. Obviously noting the comments that have just come from the public and the importance of that aspect of transport. And then finally, on the Green Recovery Fund update and just broader towards the climate and ecological strategy, We do note that significant progress has been made, while still obviously recognising the scale of the challenge that the region faces to meet the 2030 target. We're pleased to see the first open call for the Green Recovery Fund was a success, and that a number of applications were received. I would just say that as a board, we fully support the environment team as they expand their programme of activities. However, in light of the Queen's funeral and the public mourning, our LEP board meeting last week, when we had been due to discuss this in more detail, was postponed. But obviously we'll look forward to developing ways in which we can work again to support delivery and hopefully to assist in catalysing the private sector to take actions and to empower residents. And then finally, just on the combined authority internal approvals, the LEP always remains supportive of any processes to improve efficiency, whether for internal or external projects.
Thank you very much indeed, Catherine. Appreciate that. Okay, the next item is item 8, comments from the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So that means we're over to Winston Duguid. Councillor Winston Duguid.
Thank you, Metro Mayor. During the summer, I was working on a working party with the Institute of Government on combined authorities and looking at how some are more successful than others in different spheres. And that's been useful work. So I've got more benchmarking material, which hopefully I can use constructively. One of the outputs and outcomes, rather, is that scrutiny chairs of all the combined authorities, obviously excluding London, are now meeting on a quarterly basis on Zoom to share our experiences, and I just wanted to update the meeting on that. On yesterday we met at short notice, obviously because of the situation with the Queen's funeral, and we went through the papers. We started off as usual, and I must commend the Metro Mayor. He always attends the scrutiny meeting. It's a real help. It's not pre-scripted, so we don't try and deliberately catch him on the hop. But he is he is very good at his attendance and putting it in the diary. And what I just want to say is an observation generally, and we touched on this with the Metro Mayor, is that we've had our triumphs in the last year in the combined authority, CRSTS, BSIP, and at long last Support His Head link. But the public perception is that buses are not necessarily our finest hour. I think it's important to sort of reflect on that. Why is it? Has circumstances overcome us? And I tend to think of the footballing parlance where we tend to be in the combined authority very good at set pieces. And that's what I described as the CRSTSs and the BSIPs, where we know what that pot of money is for, we put the work in, we show unitary authority, consent and approval and input in that, we know who's delivering it, and we know who's accountable. So we're good at the set pieces. But when we're playing on the park in open play and events happen, we don't seem quite so good. And we've known we've been on the cliff edge on buses since before Christmas. We had a reprieve back in March. We had another reprieve back in June. You all four and the Metro Mayor had the meeting, and there was 1.2 million came out of some settlement, etc. And then here we are today, and I don't want to repeat some of the comments that have been made. They're far more powerful than I can ever come across with the real problems that this is causing. And I just feel that with some of the other combined authorities, and I don't want to be unfair in criticism, that they have been more assertive at an earlier stage with the bus companies. That's my observation. I have to report that back. And I do think this is all a bit lastminute.com. We're actually reacting today. The officers, fantastic what they're doing and trying to get these secondary routes sorted out. But we simply must do better in the future, where we're in this situation, and it's my analogy of open play rather than the set pieces. And there's nothing personal about this. In fact, the Metro Mayor went out of his way yesterday to understand the difficulty that this will cause, unfortunately, the most disadvantaged in society at the moment. The other thing I wanted to dwell on is that, again, it's meant to be a constructive observation, that we've now got observer status on the boards. And in fact, we've got less boards than when you came into position. And I think that's quite deliberate by you, because you wanted joined up thinking, and you articulated that well yesterday. But our view is that the Business and Skills Board works well to its brief. We believe the LEP Board works well as well, but we made the point yesterday that we don't think the Transport Board does. Now, it's an adult conversation, it's just an observation, but it's not clear to us what the purpose of that board is, and it's certainly not clear to the cabinet members on the unitary authorities, and they feel not disenfranchised, but they feel it's too late and they can't have sensible dialogues about the big issues, but even, and the long-term issues, but even, as we found out the meeting last week, the buses weren't even discussed, and we're in an emergent situation. That was a transport board meeting. So there seems to be a bit of a disconnect. Now, I know we're called a regional transport authority, but in many ways we're that in name only. We don't have the same power as other combined authorities who have a block grant and have a precept, and they have responsibility for highways, and they have a lot to do with trains and trams, etc. So we're not quite at that stage on our journey as development of a combined authority. And we know we started later than some of the others. And I think with the Metro Mayor, we share the same concern that we need to take more authority. We need to get our spending levels up. The Metro Mayor quotes the figures of Manchester at £60 plus per head, of the West Midlands at over £40 a head, and we are tracking at £20 per head. Well, we are in Bristol and Baines. We're slightly less in South Gloucestershire. And we need to get that up. The fundamental issue is there isn't enough money there, and we need to address how we do that in a sensible way. But it's quite interesting looking at where some of the other combined authorities are further on in the journey, and it does seem to work. What's more so, and what I want to really get across without labouring it too toughly, is that a lot of the friction that exists, and there has been a lot of friction in the last 15 months, is on this big issue of transport. And I think it would help if we got the Transport Board sorted out in what it's meant to, its purpose is, and therefore what the expectation is on both the combined authority and the unitary authorities. I think that would ease the friction. I think it would improve the overall relationship. And I think it would get what I see evidence of in other places, sometimes smaller combined authorities than ours, where they're one for all for one. And, party politics isn't part of this. It's about character, it's about relationships, it's about getting the big picture and then implementing it locally. And this does work in other areas, and that's not to say that we're thick or we're doing, we're deliberately trying to not be as sensible as we are. We need more powers to be able to do this, and we need a sort of mindset of, really thinking of what's best for the region. And the glass is half full as I'm concerned. There's opportunities there. I just want to dwell very briefly then on some of the other things that we discussed yesterday. Transforming Cities Fund, slightly disturbing to read at first sight that it looks as if we're going to have a £25 million underspend. This is time limited to March 2023, and if nothing changes, it looks as if we're going to be handing back 25 million. The officer assured us that wasn't going to be the case, that he's got not a cunning plan, but he's working on several plans, and perhaps there's several areas where we may still be able to repurpose some of this. But I think we are where we are, and I think the point was made, and we had a very healthy discussion in the scrutiny meeting, whilst you were there and after you were there, to say, well, what's the lesson to be learned here, and how can we in future be earlier in our intervention and earlier working out what the timescales are. I mean, COVID's hit us for 6. The cost of living crisis is now hitting us for more than 6 in terms of inflation. These are exceptional times that we live in. But even so, there's a lesson to be learned there. And I take comfort from the Director of Investment that there may be ways of not handing back this 25 million, that there may be ways of recirculating that. And, Councillor Plowden made the point that, the lessons to be learned for the larger schemes going forward, like CRSTS, we must learn those lessons. I think the second point I wanted to say that we had a good update from the interim transport director, and he reminded us of 3 goals of simplification, collaboration, and acceleration, which has been in the news this morning. So he's in sync, and the Chancellor's in sync with what we need to do. So this has been good and constructive, the dialogue there. This is clear evidence of how it seems to be working well between the unitary authorities and the combined authority at officer level. And we were pleased to hear, for instance, that 6 months has been taken off the original project line by the success of collaborative working, which has enabled the combined authority to go to full business case earlier than otherwise it would have done. So look, it's not all bad. There are some really good pieces of evidence to say that it's working well. And I think the other thing I need to highlight, because it trumps everything, doesn't it, is the climate change situation on green recovery and the update. And we were pleased with the report that was given to us, the action to date of where we are, but this is where it now gets serious. And the events of the summer, not just here but around the world, really is beginning to get into really, really sharp focus about climate change. And it raised to us the question, because we didn't have the graph yesterday, the famous graph of the projection of where we are to net 30, progress to net zero by 2030. But how on earth are we going to do it? And what levers have we got to fast track? And we did ask that in future we have timelines of, not just getting to 2030, but seeing where we are in 2025 and 2028 to see whether there are more areas that we should put more emphasis on rather than others. We raised the question that, some of the RAG is slightly out of date, for instance, with the Bristol e-bikes. And a lot of the approach is economic rather than looking at the triple bottom line. And perhaps a bit too much emphasis on economic development rather than the social and environmental matters. And perhaps the Green Book should be used more as a basis for making the strategic case. I did raise whether, where we've got it segmented between the built environment and transport and various other segments, whether we should go for a big bang, but it was explained to me that, actually we're trying to hit various different pockets, and, there's various different pockets where there may be money more applicable to be. So I do think we need to get through the bus crisis, obviously, as best we can, through the crisis we've got on the cost of living, but this climate change issue and getting to net zero by 2030 is a real issue. I think it needs more importance placed on it by all of us to get there. I think we need to embed sustainable development into the culture of the combined authority and the unitary authorities, and that's not going to be easy. But now's the time to really pinpoint where we are going between now and 2030 on what is the most vital of issues. And I think of the other things, we noted them, but I don't think there's anything I particularly want to raise to the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Winston. And I'm always happy to come to the scrutiny meetings wherever I can, because I actually think that makes me a better Metro Mayor, makes me make better decisions. Don't always like it, find it uncomfortable sometimes, but it makes me think about the things that I need to think about. So can I thank you and your committee colleagues for the work that you're doing, because it is important stuff. Just a quick comment on the buses. I think I would just say, I think you're conflating the bus issue with some of the points you're making, because it's not money that's the challenge at the moment. Getting over the autumn, winter and spring is about other things that I've already mentioned and other people have been talking about today. And then the other thing I suppose I would say is, obviously I speak to the other Metro Mayors, and some of those discussions are in private, and I can assure you that they have their headaches too. I agree we do need to improve and be better on the transport front. I think there's room to do that. I think I can see the way forward with that, and with the help of the Scrutiny Committee and others, I certainly intend to bring about significant changes. But I wouldn't want people to go away and think that somehow the West England Combined Authority is worse than any others. In fact, in many respects, it's a lot better. And I can, if I were allowed to tell you the reasons, you'd know why. I'm not. But combined authorities are a funny setup. They were created relatively recently. They weren't truly about devolution coming down from Westminster and Whitehall to give powers from there to us regionally. They often took powers away from unitary authorities. which has created tensions and resentment, and the way that the structures have been made and the voting procedures have been made are almost designed to make decision making in a smooth way next to impossible. But we're working on this. I think with time trust builds. I think it is in a better place than it has been. Still a way to go, and I completely take on board many of your comments, Winston. So thank you very much. Okay. Now I can hear a bit of reverb. Is that something that anyone needs to adjust? Okay. In that case, right. Could we now move to item 9, motions? There are none. So if we move now on to item 10, the investment fund programme. Now this report sets out new investment in a variety of positive schemes, which I'm sure some of my colleagues to my right here may want to comment on. And I know South Gloucestershire yesterday afternoon raised the fact that they would like to make an extra recommendation, and I'm supportive of the North Fringe, absolutely, I really am. But I do think it's a bit too late to give proper due diligence to what is a significant matter. So, however, what I'd like to propose, and I hope this is acceptable, is that we bring it to another meeting where we can give it full consideration. We've got a meeting next month, and we'll try and get it in there if we possibly can, because we do need to discuss it, and I want to discuss it in a full and proper way because it's important. It affects Bristol, it affects South Gloucestershire, and actually it impacts on Bath and North East Somerset too. So we do need to get it absolutely right. So are you content with that, Toby, that we bring it for a proper discussion at another meeting, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not against that idea, but I'm just conscious that so far we have not actually diarised a meeting for October. Certainly there isn't something that's in any of our diaries on this side of the committee, and we have had issues in the past where committee meetings have been attempted to be diarised at very short notice, and as a result, committee members haven't been able to attend. I will just need to confer with my chief executive sitting behind me around whether a month is something that we're able to wait for. Clearly, the reason that we wanted to bring it forward today was that we had said at our July meeting that we would consider it today. So very surprised to not see it in the papers for today. And just for the public's benefit, this is the arena infrastructure package. These are the infrastructure upgrades that are required for us to be able to issue the planning consent to allow for the Brabazon arenas to be converted and fully restored into the amazing facility for our region. So the clock is ticking. We do need the certainty to be able to move ahead with this project and to make sure that we do not end up with the calamitous situation of an arena opening without the supporting infrastructure to be able to get people to and from that new venue without heaping utter chaos and misery onto the communities that immediately adjoin the arena site. If you just bear with me for one moment, Chair, I'll just need to double check with my Chief Executive on that. Thank you, Chair. So just to be clear, the amendment that we were looking to propose today does not award funding today. So in terms of your point about due diligence, there is still time to do that. Essentially, we were asking for the same approach and the same consistency to be followed with other projects that are on the in the papers today. So for example, and I don't wish to prejudge the discussion that we'll have on it, but recommendation 3 to approve the outline business case for the Albion Dock project and to make an allocation within the programme that is subject to a full business case. That is in effect the approach that we were asking for on the arena infrastructure package. So it's not about awarding funding today, but it is to make sure that we are building into the programme an allocation that could be drawn down to fund those infrastructure works, subject to that due diligence and full business case that, as you say, is important for us to do. So I just wonder whether it might be helpful to ask the Interim Director of Investment and Corporate Services just to ask for his technical comments on what South Gloucestershire Council is asking for today.
Yeah, so a couple of points, and you're right, it is in line with the wording of the Albion Doc report, so it matches the wording there. I think the recommendation also talks about coming back, I think, in the new year with a full business case. There is a point it lines up, and therefore this is about a set aside and not an allocation to a full business case. So it wouldn't be confirming the money as you say. So from a technical perspective, it's exactly the same as that. From a narrow point of view, it is a late change. It's late at 4:30, but we do get some of these. So from that narrow perspective, that makes it more challenging. It looks like the meeting we will have hopefully in October is, all being well with other diaries, is looking to be the 14th of October. So there wouldn't be an enormous delay. But so this is really about a set aside technically, not an allocation. So it doesn't fall in terms of any technical reason why it couldn't proceed as a recommendation. I suppose my question ultimately is how much further will we be come the 14th of October that we aren't today, given the recommendation talks about the full business case coming back, sometime after the 14th of October.
Thank you very much, Richard. Appreciate that. The thing I'd simply say, Toby, is I've had on time stuff from Bristol and Bath and North East Somerset councils, and yours came in at 4:37, I think, last night. So there may be good reasons for that. I'm not trying to make a point other than, is it so urgent that you made notice of this yesterday afternoon? I'd just ask you that, please.
Oh, thank you, Dan. The notice for this was given by the committee at its last regular meeting in July, when we said that we would consider this matter today. Obviously, the paper, this issue was absent from the report when it was published and put into the public domain. We've then had to agree some additional wording, take appropriate technical advice on that, and then to share it. And that was shared yesterday. But importantly, it's not a late change. We said that we would consider this matter today at our July committee meeting.
Okay, well, the wording did come very late, but look, what I want to do in any event, if you don't mind, with the agreement of my colleagues here, could we have a short adjournment in any event, because that will allow us to talk about this and work out whether we need to proceed and talk about it today, or we'd prefer to do something later. And I want to get a quick briefing from my Chief Executive, who's just been talking to the Secretary of State about today's announcement, because it may be important to what we're discussing later on. So I just want to do that. Is that happy? Are you happy for a 5 to 10 minute break? Sorry, if the public would bear with me, because I just want to check that I haven't missed out on some important information that might be relevant to what we're discussing. Is that okay? Thank you. that. I'm not critical of that at all. It is an important matter, I agree. What I'll do is I'll come in that case to the recommendation as laid out in the report. So I'll move that. Is there a seconder for that, please? Thank you very much indeed, Kevin. Do you wish to speak to it, Kevin?
Yeah, we're taking them one to five in block, are we, Chair? Is that right? Are we going one at a time? We can keep our comments on one block, make things move smoothly. I'm happy with that, always happy with that.
All right, let me turn my thing off so that they can hear you.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, Bath has bounced back tremendously. The footfall in Bath is better than it was at pre-COVID levels, so we're really proud of that. We're moving faster and quicker than most cities in the UK. So I'd just like to welcome the Milton Court project award of £2.475 million. That particular area of the city is in need of a big revamp. There's a lot of small independent traders in that part of the city, and we're very keen to drag footfall to that part of the city, and I'm really appreciative of WECA's support in doing that. We're also looking at having West of England, let's get this all right, but also really important in this project is the Fashion Museum project, which are in tandem with all the great museums of Europe, and we are going to hopefully provide a fashion museum which is world class up there with the V&A with the support of this body. So we're very proud of that. Milton Court will be transformed by this sum of money, and we look forward to the project getting underway. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Kevin. Would anyone else like to come in? Craig.
Again, we'd like to welcome this report, in particular, for the region broadly, but also in particular Bristol. As somebody who's recently become the duty holder for Bristol Harbour, I have a formal gratitude for the various bits of funding coming into the harbour, including the Albion Dock project, which we have touched on already. It's also good to see various bits of support that will help us to deliver our houses, parks, homes in Henry Park. That's great. And similarly, bits of transport infrastructure, so Bedminster Green, for example, and the Bristol Bridge signal. So we're really appreciative of this, and looking forward to it.
Toby.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for advising that I've agreed to something as you restarted this item. Would you just be able to outline what your approach is going to be to the arena infrastructure package and what we are agreeing today in relation to that, please?
In terms of the North Fringe?
In terms of the arena infrastructure package,
yeah. We're going to, well, because we've had a discussion in a Zoom call this week, that we're going to convene a meeting with various parties and relevant people to make sure that that is on course, because I'm, like you, anxious that there's no delay that causes it not to be coordinated in terms of timing. So what we don't want is an arena without a railway line, for example. We know that there are challenges to getting it absolutely perfect, Toby, because the railway line won't be the complete solution initially, but we'll get there. People may need to change and things like that. So what I'm saying to you is that I am very aware of the important infrastructure that's required in the North Fringe, and I'm happy to discuss that fully and debate that fully as soon as we can. I give an undertaking here publicly to do so, and we can go through in detail exactly what's going on. But what I'm anxious to do is to get on with it, but I don't want to get on with it in a reckless way. I want to get on with it in an informed and proper discussion, because the good projects that we're hearing about and are being praised by your colleagues are also applicable to South Gloucestershire, and we need to just sort that out and get on with that, please.
Thank you, Chair. So just to be clear, the discussion that we had earlier this week was about Metro West Phase 2. That is different to the arena infrastructure package that was the subject of our amendment. So you're right, we do still need to have further conversations about Metro West Phase 2, but the arena infrastructure package is focused on the non-rail interventions that are needed. My understanding of what I'm agreeing to today, and the reason for not pushing it to a vote today, is that we will have our meeting in October where we will consider the arena infrastructure package item. And I would also just like an assurance that we are going to have a consistent approach to schemes, because obviously one of the comments I made at the start was around I'm only asking for the same treatment on this project as we're proposing to do for the Albion Dock scheme. So I'd like those two things from you. Firstly, one around we're going to consider the arena infrastructure package at our meeting in October, and then secondly that you do commit that we will have a consistent approach to how we bring forward schemes, please.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. So we will focus on the package as you've outlined, and we'll give you, we'll make sure it's on the agenda for the October meeting, okay? Just to reassure you on that. And then in terms of a consistent approach, well, you know, I'm an equality person, an egalitarian person. I look forward to you joining me in the Labour Party at some point, Toby, but I will make sure all of you will be treated fairly. I promise you that. Okay. Right. Anyone else? No. Okay, in that case, can I put that to the vote then? Those in favour, please show. None against, so that's carried. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your patience with that one, everybody, including the public. Thank you. Right. Item 11, the Investment Fund Delivery Assurance. So as you know from previous meetings and comments indeed to Winston Dogood's scrutiny committee in the past, I'm really concerned about delivery. Delivery is become even more acute because of the rampant inflation that we currently face. I look at the expenditure that we have to make, and I see the delays that are sometimes happening, and I'm thinking each month that passes costs us literally millions of pounds that we can't make a difference with at a time when all our communities right across the west of England, whether that be in South Gloucestershire or Bath, North East Somerset or Bristol of course, when people need that money to be spent as soon as we reasonably and possibly can. So it does trouble me somewhat. So what I want to just say is that my concern about delivery means that we kind of contest it now with this dry run for the CRSTS programme in the Transforming Cities Fund, which was referred to earlier as well. And I know you agree a lack of delivery is not acceptable, but it's not just getting it done, it's getting it done in a timely way and getting on with it. And I know that's not straightforward for all the reasons that we've discussed on a number of occasions, but we've got the first meeting of the review board next week, this system that we're trying to get in there to make things more focused and more speedily undertaken so projects can get on, and if we can see there's slippage in any way, we can address it before it becomes a major problem. So what I would do is like to send a clear instruction from all of us present here today, of course, that it is totally unacceptable to deprive the region of these investment funds because of any delays, whether that's through inflation, as I just mentioned, or in fact government clawback, and that was referred to. You know, I cannot tell you how much I completely hate, and I know you will share this, giving money back to government when they've allocated it simply because we haven't used it in time. Now, what I have to be honest about and say is if the process we're set up doesn't deliver the changes we need, we'll have to review it again and make it work. We can't just say, that's it, it doesn't work, and forget about it. It's really important we get on with it. So I'd like to move, in that case, the recommendation is set out in the report. Is there a seconder for that, please? Yeah. Okay, Craig, thank you very much indeed. Would you like to speak to this, Craig?
So, yeah, I mean, obviously we're supportive of the report, in particular the QTIC paper, which I know Marvin's been meeting with the university throughout the summer, really, to discuss his support for that, but to make sure that it was delivered in a way that felt sustainable to both sides. So I'm pleased to note that the paper has been sort of massaged to keep everyone happy. So, yeah, no, just second the report, happy to see it.
Thank you, Craig. I'm not sure massaged is a word I would have used, but there you are. Thank you for introducing that to our vocabulary. Okay, are there any other members who'd like to speak? Kevin.
Yeah, very quickly, Chair. So I fully agree with what Craig's just said, and QTIC I think it's a great idea. I just think with regards to delivery, we need to be really tight on monitoring their progress, because obviously we don't want it to overrun. It costs more and more money. So as a body, we need to be... And a staged process, we'll need to look at all the payments as we go through and make sure they're value for money. That was all I'd say. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. Toby, would you like to comment, please?
I've no new comments and echo comments of colleagues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Toby. Right, in that case, can we take all the recommendations en bloc, if that's okay? So, all those in favour, please show. Okay, any against? That's carried. Okay, thank you. Right, item 12, the Infrastructure Directorate Transport. So here I have a special plea to my council leader colleagues here today. I know it's really difficult, and I know this is going to take some time to do, but please can we do everything we can to spend £5 million on upgrading our bus stops, okay? We need great places for people to wait for the bus if we're going to attract new passengers onto the buses. I know we've got challenges with the buses themselves, but that doesn't mean we forget about how we attract people onto buses when we get that sorted, and bus stops are a hugely important part of that. And we can talk about that another time, as we no doubt will, about what that should mean and how that should look. But what we do need to do is spend that money, because I don't want to give it back to the government to spend on something else in another place. So I'd like to therefore move the recommendation as set out in the report. Is there a seconder to that one, please? Kevin, thank you very much indeed. Toby, you were nearly there. Kevin, just slightly ahead of you. Okay, do any members wish to speak? Kevin?
Yeah, thanks again, Chair. So I fully agree with. I think the irony here is we're not in control of the buses, but we're in control of the bus stops. So it just sounds stupid, doesn't it? It's crazy. We live in a very broken system when it comes to the buses, as many people have eloquently spoken to before. I'm more than happy to try and invest as much money into improving the bus stops as possible, but obviously we need to focus on a long-term strategy in fixing our transport policy in general. So I'd echo Winston's comments earlier about the Transport Board and trying to make that more feasible and looking ahead with regards to strategic management about the general picture of the traffic situation in the region. At the moment, it's just a bit of a talking shop where papers that are very well put together by officers on most occasions are handed to our Transport Board. We have some exceptionally capable officers from around the region that are very experienced, with very experienced cabinet members, some good members of the private sector that are on that board as well. I really do think they should be helping drive forward a bigger strategic picture, and I'd probably like, with our colleagues here, to think about how we can amend our constitution to give that board slightly more power and emphasis to drive forward a bigger strategic vision for the whole region moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin. Toby, would you like to speak, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, yeah, happy to support all the recommendations. That includes the final recommendation around bus stop upgrades. I think it's just so important to say that and you know, I'm not sure I'd want to be in the shoes of the Director of Infrastructure, given the what he is being asked to do as part of this. I think it also needs to be remembered that, and I appreciate the situation might be different in different councils, but in the case of South Gloucestershire, broadly speaking, we're only in control of about half of the bus shelters in the district. And a significant proportion are owned and maintained by our town and parish councils, of which we've got over 40. So the Director of Infrastructure for WECA is going to have a lot of conversations with a lot of different organisations across South Gloucestershire in order to ensure that such a large amount of money is spent in such a short period of time. I do not envy his role, but certainly as a council we will try to do what we can in those very tough circumstances about what we can do. It's also just important to make the point that the regulatory services that councils have to follow and the requirements we have to follow, whether that's planning or licensing, it's all very well talking about streamlining those, but if they're not followed correctly, then we do get legal challenge, and that also then adds in delay in delivery. So we need to do things quickly, appropriately, and yeah, good luck to the Director of Infrastructure for WECA.
Thank you very much, Toby, and thank you for that support, because that's important. We need to do things quickly and well. Okay, so if we take each of the recommendations in turn, recommendation 1, please, all those in favour, please show. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Recommendation 2, again, all those in favour, please show. Carried unanimously. Recommendation 3, all those in favour, please show. Okay, that's unanimous. And recommendation 4, all those in favour, please show. That's carried. And then recommendation 5, all those in favour, please show. Carried unanimously. And recommendation 6, please show if you're in favour. Carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much for that. That was very prompt. I hope we can get that spending on the bus shelters as quick as we got that through, that item. Brilliant. Okay, item 13, Green Recovery Fund update. Now, over the summer, we had record temperatures, of course, showing once again that we face a climate emergency that requires bold action. We've got to a point now, I think, where most of us in the room, I think certainly the leaders present, feel that we can't take our foot off the gas, if that's not a bad example or metaphor. So here we have investments that support nature recovery and renewable energy generation. So I'd like, therefore, to call for a seconder, please. Who would wish to second that? Toby. Thank you, Toby. Would you like to speak, Toby?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will. Just to confirm, are we treating all of the recommendations en bloc, or are we only speaking to the first?
Are you content to do them all in one go? Yeah, I mean, I prefer to do that just for ease.
I just want to make sure I know what I'm talking to.
Yeah, of course. No, yeah. Widely range your comments over all the recommendations, Toby.
Thank you, Chair. So, we'd like to welcome the report and the recommendations that we are considering today. If I talk about round 1 of the Green Recovery Fund, very pleased to see support for the Froome Valley River Reserve project. It's a flagship new nature reserve scheme that the council is driving through an existing council land holding that we're keen to maximise for biodiversity gain and to aid nature recovery. I also welcome the fact that the commitment within the report that we will consider further applications that we did receive through round 1 at the October meeting, because there are a couple of schemes within there that, whilst have a particular interest to South Gloucestershire, are important regionally. One is around how we increase our tree canopy cover, and that was one of the projects that the council submitted in round 1. And then I think also just being very supportive of the work being spearheaded by the Institute for Advanced Automotive Propulsion Systems, owned by the University of Bath, based at the Emerson's Green, based at the Science Park at Emerson's Green, and the work they want to do around hydrogen to make sure that our region's at the forefront of the potential of that new and emerging technology. I believe that you might have some comments to make, Chair, on the recommendation 2, which is the regional low carbon delivery scheme, and just the issue about the need for that additional 995,000 to be funded through investment fund, as opposed to the unallocated sum that remains within the Green Recovery Fund. I won't say much more on that point. Other colleagues might wish to, but otherwise, yeah, happy to support those recommendations, subject to potentially tweaking that second recommendation.
I've seen the words of your amendment, and I'm content with that. So is that show you?
So it's just to confirm, we're proposing and seconding the recommendations, but with the amended wording for 2.
Yes.
That makes that point.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah. That's fine. Are you content? Everyone clear about that? Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm also supportive of this. In particular, it's good to see the funding for the Capricorn Cay floating ecosystem project, which will provide a large floating ecosystem with moorings, which will increase the biodiversity in the harbour, which is great to see. Also good to see Bristol Energy Networks. I see David is here from Bristol Energy Network to take the learning from Ambitions Lawrence Weston around for the wind turbine work that they did there, and great to see the Energy Co-op solar project as well, with working with Bristol rooftop owners to increase solar. So great.
Thank you very much, Craig. Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Bath, amazing, beautiful city, but most of my area is North East Somerset, a great green asset that we all enjoy. So I'm very pleased to see the application from Avon Needs Trees to create a green Avon wood, creating a new community woodland of over 50,000 trees in Baines, just south of Bristol, which will be the jewel in the crown of the region's green infrastructure. This project has been very well supported by the region's newest Liberal Democrat MP even, Councillor Paul May, maybe an MP one day possibly. We've had yeah, possibly not. Yeah, let's not push it now. At least 1,000 volunteers will help plant these trees and create a woodland trail for enjoyment for the entire public. I'm pleased to see skills and wellbeing schemes coming out of this project as well, which is very, very important for the region. The Great Avon Wood is being managed by two of the region's most credible charities, Avon Needs Trees and the Forest of Avon Trust, in partnership with organisations like Woodland Trust. So I'm very, very pleased to support the application, and obviously extremely pleased to support the Green Recovery Fund in general.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Kevin. So, does anyone else want to comment? No, that's fine, great. So in that case, if we look at recommendation 2, Toby's proposed a new form of words as an amendment. Is that seconded by anybody? Okay, thank you, Kevin. Can we, those in favour, please show. Okay, that amendment is carried, so that now becomes the new amendment 2. So in that case, can I ask you to please vote for all the amendments? So that's 1 through to 5 on block. Those in favour, please show. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. Right. Okay, so in that case, we're now on item 15, the West of England Combined Authority and Mayoral Forecast for 2022-23. This report asks the committee to please review the Revenue Financial Forecast Report for 22-23. I would now like to move the recommendation as set out in the report.
Sorry, Chair, I think we've missed 14.
Oh, we go to 14. Well, God, see, I'm so determined to deliver, I'm moving too fast. Okay, let's go to 14. Right, apologies. So let's go to 14. I'm having a good day today. Climate and Ecological Strategy and Action Plan Update. We've done that. No, we haven't. Okay, that's why I'm getting confused. Right, that's why I'm getting confused. Apologies. Okay, so this is another important climate emergency report and is our first 6-monthly update on the refreshed climate strategy, which is important to keep on top of these things. In fact, as Winston mentioned in his scrutiny committee, we do need to keep looking at what we're achieving, not just assuming things are happening, but making sure that they are happening, and if they're not, doing things to catch up and hopefully do even better. So if we are to meet our ambitious 2030 net zero goals, then we must continually monitor and look for the more that we can do. Of course, very many of the actions required are not something that the West of England Combined Authority, frankly, can do alone. It requires efforts from national government, particularly, I think, our unitary authority partners present here today, of course, and the wider community down to every individual. We all have a part in making this happen. So in that case, can we just please please note the recommendation as set out in the report? And does anybody want to speak to this before we do that? Kevin.
Yeah, just very quickly, Chair. I think Winston covered this very well earlier. We declare a climate emergency, which is almost certainly the most important thing that faces us as a committee and faces us as a society. So I'm really pleased about that. And the data that's coming through has actually shown us that we're in a far worse state than we actually thought we were in. So it's so important to get this data so we can actually look at a more probably radical solutions to this problem. And I think as a community we need to probably burden that, and we need far more support from central government moving forward. And I don't think central government have grasped the problem yet with their 2050 targets, while we're pushing for 2030. So hopefully we can work with central government and show them the data we're collating and use it to help everybody.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And I do concur about the importance of national government here, because everyone has an important role, but national government particularly so, because the challenge is just so vast, frankly. Okay, so is that recommendation noted, please? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, let's move on to item 15 that we've already started and come back away from. So this report asks the committee to review the annual financial forecast report for 22-23. I'd like to move that recommendation as set out in the report. Do I have a seconder, please? Thanks very much, Craig. Cheers. Would you like to speak to that, Craig, at all?
Well, happy to second it. I would just stress, as we did in the previous meeting, that obviously we, as leaders, we can't approve the increase in the levy. That has to go through full council at our budget setting processes in February. So whilst we approve the kind of principles, we will have to concede to the greater.
Okay, thank you very much, Craig. Well, we've had lots of discussions about that, and we do understand the challenges that you face, and we're doing our best to try and meet them. Okay. All right. Does anybody else wish to speak on this? Toby.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would just like to echo the points that Craig made, because this was the subject of a very heated discussion between us as committee members some months back. So it's just really important to again emphasise the point that we cannot be making decisions on the transport levy before and only as part of our budget setting meetings in February. So just really important that point is stressed. And obviously the other point that again was the subject of robust conversations is the importance of WECA being able to demonstrate efficiencies and value for money in how we make use of all of the existing pots of funding to be able to support public transport and buses in our region. So we'll continue to look for assurances around that over the coming months in the run-up to our own budget setting at the beginning of 2023.
Okay, thank you, Toby. Before Kevin, you come in, can I just say, look, just by asking the question, you imply somehow, Toby, that there isn't efficiencies and appropriate approach, and let me assure you there is, and I'm all over this all of the time. But you're very welcome to ask that question, to raise it, of course, but I want you just to be aware that we work really hard to make sure we're efficient. So, for example, our reserves are exactly what they should be. We don't have inflated reserves as compared to the unitary authorities, and we do lots of other things very efficiently and well. It's very important that we do that. We have to account for every last penny because it's not our money, it's the taxpayers' money, and it's important that they know we're doing things properly. Okay, sorry, thank you very much, Kevin.
Not a problem, Chair. Yeah, it's just I wouldn't want to reiterate, go over old ground with some arguments that we've had before or disagreements. But you made a point earlier, Chair, about delivery, and as combined authorities, we're the ones that have to deliver these projects. So we have to work hand in glove and make sure that these things are talked about well in advance, because they're thrown at us at the very last minute with pots of money at the very last minute. It's impossible for us to deliver them, and people on the ground only see real change if we actually get the delivery right. So it's really important that we fix that key element that we haven't quite done yet with as a regional authority. But apart from that, I'm more than happy to support the report.
Thanks very much, Kevin. And while I agree with you to an extent, we also know, and I won't embarrass anybody, that some projects are way behind and it isn't last-minute things. They just haven't been got on with, and that's what I'm anxious about too. Okay, in that case, can we let me just check. We've got two recommendations. Are you happy to take them together? Yep. Okay, in that case, let's take recommendations 1 and 2 together. Those in favour, please show. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, item 16 then, the headline assessment on inflationary pressures and mitigations. Now, with rampant inflation, which we've talked about already in this meeting today, we must urgently get on with delivery. And I've received some helpful suggestions to amend recommendation 2 last night. So if the committee are happy, I will read that out now and then propose the amended recommendation. Is that something people are content for me to do, to read that out? Okay, so that we request that officers minimise the impact of inflation by funding within approved budgets and ensuring key outputs are delivered on time, with regular coordination meetings with regional finance and infrastructure directors, because I know that's something that people were keen to make sure that we agreed. So is that, all those in favour of that amendment, please show. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Okay, I'd like to now move to the recommendations set out in the report, obviously including the amendment. Can I call for a seconder, please? Craig, I think you were just first. Yeah, you're on delivery today, I can tell. You're practicing what you're preaching. Oh, well, that's a very big incentive. That's a good catalyst. Okay. Do any members, therefore, want to speak on this? Toby will now speak at great length to keep you away from your children, Craig. Toby. Do you want to speak? No. Okay. So in that case, can we take the recommendations as on block, please? If that's okay. All those in favour of those recommendations, please show. Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 17, combined authority internal approvals. I would like to withdraw this paper. We'll retable an amended version for a future meeting. Okay, so we'll get to talk about that another time more fully. Okay, that is the meeting closed. Thank you ever so much, everybody who's been so patient. Thank you for my colleagues for their contributions today, for the LEP input and the scrutiny committee input, very important too. But most importantly, thank you to all those members of the public who were brave enough to get up and speak. It's not easy, and it does make a difference. It really does impact on what we're doing. Thank you very much indeed.